Let's go ahead and get started with our Cvent new user training. To begin, I will start on our eComm website, which is www.cu.edu/eComm. And from there, in our top navigation on the far right, we do have a login option. This is where we have the login access to our 3 separate applications, but today we will be logging into Cvent, the option on the right-hand side of the screen. For our users at the University of Colorado, that account code will be all caps UCCO003. Your username should be your university email address, and you should have created your password upon logging in for the first time. If you've forgotten your login information, you should be able to reset it by going through this link. But I will go ahead and just log in. First place you will be taken to is your events overview page. If you are a brand new user, there's a good chance you do not see any events populated here yet. We'll highlight on this events overview page, there are a few items in the top right corner to assist you. One is a search function where you can search for events if you do have access to many of them. There's also a recent items function, so you can quickly navigate to events that you've recently been working on. There's also the incredible help and support that comes with your access to Cvent. If you're hovering that question mark icon, you can then click on help and support in the dropdown, and it will open up a new tab. The new tab that opens is Cvent's knowledge base, which is a wealth of resources. You are able to open a case, chat with them, or request a phone call if you do want to connect with someone for support, which are all wonderful options. You can also search their knowledge base. For example, I will just search for sessions here. Maybe that's a feature that I'm curious about, but I don't know how to use it yet. And this is often where I would start by just searching that name of that feature within this knowledge base. From there, you will find great links to additional step-by-step tutorials that will walk you through how to address creating sessions for your event. And to kick off, we're really going to start with creating a first event with this big blue button in the top right corner. In step 1 of entering your event details, the default setting will be to create this event using an event template. This is a great option to find a CU branded template for you to customize, but we often see users, once they're in the system for a long time, might clone an existing event that they have already customized. I am going to take a moment to go back to our eComm website, again, cu.edu/eComm, but this time in our navigation, I am going to hover guidelines and then click on eComm event templates. These eComm event templates are available within your Cvent account. So this is a great way to kind of preview what those 6 different templates look like. And then they also have an associated name that will be important if that's the one that you want to clone. So going back into Cvent, it will just scroll down slightly. And again, using one of those 6 event templates, I will select this little ellipses. And that will give us access to those templates that are available. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and grab this Flex event image with 50% white overlay. We'll see it takes a moment to process as it does clone every aspect of that template. I want to populate this basic event information. Very important is adding your event title up there. In this case, I'll just call it Melanie's training event. You will have to select what category your event goes in, but to be honest, this is not something we report on or really look at. So just do your best to fill that category out correctly. And then, of course, you'd want to go ahead and update the description. There's just some dummy text in here, which you can go ahead and type directly in here. And you also have the ability to modify it. Let's say if you wish to bold a portion of the text. Continuing to scroll, the next element is a capacity, and you'll see this throughout Cvent. You can often hover these kind of question marks that are just trying to give you further description around what this field is for. So if your event does have a capacity, you could put it in here and your event would automatically close when that capacity is met. Or leave it blank and there will be no capacity. Pretty straightforward. Inputting your when information, you will need to update it probably to Mountain Time, depending on where your event is. Then your registration deadline, do note that when this date and time is met, it will automatically close your registration form as well. We've recently added this event format option if it's in-person, virtual, or a hybrid event. Generally, for our location at CU, we will keep it as a custom location, and that will allow you to, below that, just type directly in your location information. So if you do have a venue in there, as well as the actual address. We also have the event planner information to add here. We've got some dummy text in here just indicating first name and last name, but if I were the event planner, I just want to type those details in here. You are welcome to add a title of that individual as well or leave it blank. There is also this important component, the email of this event planner. I know by default it's set to the CU events do not reply, but we don't actually want to launch any events with this. So you might have different options available to you to select here, or you might need to reach out to your eComm specialist to have them add an email to your account so that it is populated here. In this case, I will use my email that we use for Ralphie's Corral. Next, we have these custom event fields, which are very specific to CU and actually drive a lot of the payment information if you are collecting fees for your event. So the first part, pretty straightforward, just your campus. The templates are set to system, so you might need to change it to your specific campus. And that's not where it's being hosted, it's where you work. And then the next piece, select a payment path. It is currently configured like all templates for free events. You can see the free radio button here, as well as no speed type, no account code, and no allocation fund. The idea here is if you are collecting payment, you would need to have your eComm specialist add your specific speed type and your account code so that as we collect money for all of the events into a single account, the Treasury Department can reallocate that money back to your specific speed type. If you are hosting a paid event, this is a bit more involved than these free events. So I'd highly encourage you check out our paid event wiki to really get all the details you need. But after that, we can go ahead and hit next. So the next couple steps are really just enabling or not enabling features that are available within Cvent. And there are many of them. We will not review them in great detail. I encourage you to, when you have time, look at these different items, maybe hover these information icons to get a better sense of what it might mean. And when you have time, you might want to enable this feature. Go ahead and look at some resources and help and support, and maybe it's something you would want to enable. And when I say enable, that really means, oh, I think I want sessions. Let's go ahead and check the box next to sessions. If you're on the fence about enabling something or not, no worries. You can always go back and either turn something on or off if you change your mind. I will go ahead and hit next. There will be additional features that you can enable here or not. One that I might enable is guest registration. It's not just one person RSVPing for themselves, but they're bringing others. Hit next, and I will have my final page of features to enable. We will notice that web links, the unique URLs that are created whenever an event is created, we always do want enabled. So that was built into the template. And with that complete, we can go ahead and finish, and that will start configuring our event. I'm now taken to the overview of this particular event. This home screen, there's overarching information on your event here. And on the left-hand side, this navigation is really what we're going to use to start building out this event and moving it through the event process of pending, a work in progress, to something we actively launch. So in the larger category of general, we are underneath that in home right now, this overview page. But I do want to highlight the next page on here, event information, is something that we've already done. That when we created our event, we added our basic information and our when, our where, location. So this piece is already done, but if you ever do need to make changes here, you can always go back and edit, make the changes as you need, and hit save. The next piece under event information is event configuration. And here you will also see that these are all features that we've already reviewed and enabled what we wanted. But if you changed your mind down the road, you could always come back here, hit that blue edit button in the top right corner, and choose to enable something else if you wish. The next page under event configuration of event status is also going to be important for getting your event launched. So all users within our account do not have access to launch an event without getting it approved first. So to do so, you can go to event status and choose to send your event for approval. And at that point, you can choose your eComm specialist and send it on over for them. The next tab, event settings, under event status, is also important if you are collaborating with others. By default, any event that you create is only available to you and either admins in the system or our eComm specialist. But if you want to collaborate with a fellow user, this is where you would increase your visibility. So you would be able to search for a specific user, and when you find that individual, go ahead and check the box next to their name and hit save. So the next time they log into their account, they would see this event and have the exact same access to it as you. Before I go to the next important tab, I do want to just look at this little preview option here. There's a little eye icon next to it, or an eyeball. When you click on that, it will open up a separate tab previewing your event. So you can't complete registration here, but it's a great way to see what your event will look like. And so this example, it's really taken that template that I cloned that was available on our site, and it started adding in the event information that we've populated. So the title that I gave this event, Melanie's Training Event 2, is automatically pulling in here because I put it in that event information. So there's a lot of what's called data tags built into these templates to build out efficiency. And so long as you're filling out that overarching information, the data tag should be pulling in those details correctly. So another example being this January 14th event date. That is the date that I put in there for this particular event. So again, just by way of inputting that date, it's already populated on this event website. Same goes for the event description. This countdown to the event is going to count down to the time of the event based on when I put that event information in. I also input an address of 1800 Grant Street downtown, and it's pulling in from a map exactly where that address is. I haven't done much yet and already have a pretty robust website here. So looking back on the admin side or where I'm logged in. So looking back where I'm logged in, where would I go to find that similar view? And if I wanted to make changes, where would that happen? So on the left-hand side, we'll go ahead and expand the website section and underneath click event website. So from this page, I like to just go ahead and open up the site designer. We'll kind of open a new area that really encompasses all the different pages of your event website, as well as your registration process. So the first time you open up this site designer, it's going to do this quick setup for you. And one, it's just taking the theme from whatever template we used. So that might be a great option to start with, but you also might want to modify this color scheme slightly or modify the theme text. But for a lot of people, just selecting finished and taking what was originally in the template is perfectly fine. Within the site designer on the right-hand side, there's a couple of things going on here. One is that theme, which is very much what we just looked at around if you wanted to change the fonts of this overarching event or the color scheme that's going on. I highly encourage you do this in the themes tab, as it will be carried throughout the entirety of the event. I sometimes see users want this font changed on everything. And you can actually get into every single block and manually change each individual one, but that's really inefficient and can often be inconsistent. So if you're doing any styling changes, again, I encourage you do it at the theme level. So it will be more consistent across your entire website. But if you're not thinking about changing the look and the feel of the site, you just maybe want to add more content, the build section is probably what's going to do more for you. So this entire website is built from different content blocks that have all been drug in here from the build section. So for example, maybe you need your registration deadline a bit more prominent. It's pretty straightforward to just go ahead and drag that content block in there. And then oftentimes when that happens, you're going to get options on how to edit it in this panel. And so you're more than welcome to poke around those different options, or you can kind of keep those settings as is. So as you're learning this tool, I really just encourage you to look at these different elements. And as you think it might appeal to you, just go ahead and drag it in there, see what it does, what it doesn't. Maybe you need more text in here. I do find once you get those basics of dragging blocks in here, it is pretty intuitive. With that, we'll say, as I'm hovering this block, we'll see there's a little ellipses in the top left corner. And that will give you some options if you want to maybe duplicate one of these. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. So build to add things on here and use the ellipses in the left to go ahead and delete items if you don't want them. Another important piece is that in the top left corner, we've got a navigation here. So starting from the top to the bottom, this will take you through the same order that a registrant would go through of looking at your event website until they ultimately get to maybe more of the registration process of actually filling out their personal information. And if they're adding first name, last name, email in here, but similarly to what we saw earlier, maybe we have other questions to ask them. So as simple as typing question up here, is it a text question I have or a choice question? But you can just go ahead and drag on in there and modify as you need with all the options that are available in that pane. The other piece that I will mention that's important up across the top here, one, you can go back or go forward if you want. Or save is just going to save your progress as you're going. Then publish is actually going to get it published, especially if it's live. So those are two different items. The device preview is also really useful. I love this Flex Designer. It does render well on different devices, but it's a great way to preview what that experience is like. And you can exit out of that. But one thing that I really like hidden in these little ellipses is a version history. So it's going to keep a copy every single time you hit save. So if at some point you started going down a direction that was incorrect, you can really go back. You could even add notes to your different versions so that you know which one to go back to if you need to. Learning this area definitely is a chunk of the learning curve with Cvent. So I will stop poking around here for now, but if you do have more interest around the site designer area, I'd encourage you check out our site designer wikis. I'm going to exit out of this and move on to my tabs here on the left. I am going to skip over the agenda in this case and pop to my registration. And underneath that, I have registration process. So you'll see this page looks very similar to the website that we were just on. And when we open the site designer, it's going to take us to the same site designer we were just working with. The only difference is that in this left corner, it's going to take us to one of the pages that's part of the registration process, rather than one of these event websites that people can view before they start the registration process. When you're building, depending on what features you enabled, you might have different options to build off of. For example, I enabled sessions and guest registration. So I could either search for guest or I can look what's available here. But there is a guest registration feature, and I can drag that wherever I want it, depending on when I want people to input their guests. But that is how I would get that component added. So it's not only something I needed to enable in the configuration that just made it available within the build section, I still needed to drag it into my registration process. So similar to these other content blocks, once I do drag that guest registration in there, you'll be able to control different components here, fairly intuitive if you want to change the minimum or the maximum around that, as well as some other advanced features. You can get pretty granular. Next, I will highlight under the marketing tab that we do have web links listed. Each event will have these unique web links created. And so this is what we go ahead and use and often embed in our invitations from Marketing Cloud. I do want to take a moment and just articulate where CAN spam, this federal law, does become important in how we use Cvent. This federal law really comes into play with commercial communications if you're promoting a product or a service. So when we look at the event emails, we kind of break it down into 4 sections. 1, we've got pre-event emails, so that inviting someone to an event or reminding them to register. We've got 2, which is post-registration emails. Like once they register, you might right away confirm with an email, or send a know before you go a day or maybe 5 minutes before a virtual event with a link. We've got bucket 3, which is declined registration emails, less thought about, but if somebody cancels or sends a regret, you might confirm that via email. And then we've also got 4, which is post-event emails. So those people who come to your event, you want to follow up with a survey. Looking at pre-event emails, like an invitation, this is a commercial communication. So the federal CAN-SPAM law does apply. We need to allow people to unsubscribe from these messages and not send them those messages again. And so that is managed for eComm within our marketing cloud system, which is why those messages need to originate in marketing cloud, even though it's linking to a unique URL that's in Cvent. But once we get past somebody registering, like a post-registration email, those are transactional in nature. The CAN-SPAM law no longer applies. And so people don't have to have the option to opt out. This functionality is not built into Cvent. So you are able to send post-registration emails like a know before you go, like registration confirmations all through Cvent. You can even send post-event emails if you're looking for, let's say, a survey or feedback from your attendees. That's a great option to use Cvent, and it's also transactional in nature because it's still related to this event. Sometimes people think, oh, I should add some information in there about coming to my next event. Well, that's starting to get into the commercial space. You're promoting a product or service, and that should probably be more of a marketing cloud communication. So it really needs to just be the span of the event. And segueing into those email communications, you can expand the email tab, and underneath we have event emails. So on this page, you will see different event emails outlined here, again, for the most part, going in the order which a constituent might experience getting these emails. And you'll also notice, based on the template, some of these pre-event emails we've indicated do not use. They're invites. They should not go out of the system. Just friendly advice there. And the ones that are active are the ones that we see people use most often. So I'll use the registration confirmation as an example that you can go ahead and open it up to look at the details of that email, including the subject line. So this is another example where we are using data tags, and it is going to automatically pull in the title of this event and the start date of the event. So you might not need to edit anything here at all for it to be a good quality email. There's also a tab up here where you can preview that email, see how those data tags merge in the subject line, as well as what the email looks like. And then, of course, if you want to make changes within that actual email, you can design the email, this blue button up in the top. Similar to the site designer, there is a build function as well as a theme. So build, if you want to add text, these buttons, agendas, things like that. Or if you want to change the color scheme, you can look at the theme. Also similar to the site designer, you'll notice in the top left corner, you can toggle in between all of these different communications. So we could check out the know before you go message that's set up over here. If you want to type directly into this box, you can. You can also leverage these data tags that when you click on it, there's also a search function that if you know that you're looking for what session somebody signed up for, you could add that. And there's a search function. If you know what you want to add, you could type in, let's say, title here. I would look for e-title, meaning the event title. Click on that, and it goes ahead and inputs it for you. I will exit out of that. Next, in the navigation, I will highlight the attendees. While it's not going to be populated now, The attendee list underneath it is where you would see a list of your attendees after your event has been launched. The final area that I will highlight is under reports. The first piece underneath it, reports as well, will expand just the reporting area, that if you want to have an Excel spreadsheet of everybody who's registered for your event, or even email reports, or people opening or clicking on those emails that we're sending out. Or if you're looking at financial reports, if you're collecting money for your event, those are all available reports to you that you can access and run. I'll also mention we have something called the portal available, that if these reports you create would be useful to have people without a Cvent license to have access to them for free. They would be able to run and export those reports in real time. We would be able to publish these reports to the portal. So something to ask your eComm specialist about if of interest. Event status is also going to be important. This is also where you can test your event. And so I like to go to actions and then perform test in the dropdown. Although not the most intuitive, I do say the method, change it to email test scenarios to other people. I keep the sender as myself. That doesn't particularly matter to me, but then you can add recipients, so anybody who has an account. So I'll just go ahead and find myself here. Check the box next to my name and hit OK. And then you will need to choose a scenario. So in our case, we want folks arriving from the website via a web link. Again, we're going to embed that web link to our Marketing Cloud communication and probably going to our summary page. You will have to add a description, but frankly, I typically just put tests there. And after that, you will be ready to start your test. And a final confirm. So that got an email to my inbox that looks like this. And the reason I like doing it this way, I know this doesn't look that pretty, but I actually just go ahead and copy this link address. So I might send it to the person who requested the event for me, somebody else in the office who has nothing to do with it, but that same link can be used by me or multiple other people to test the event. And so the single link, this one email that goes to your inbox, that's how I leverage the link for many tests. Once your event has been tested, of course, navigating back to that event status so that you can send for approval will be a step. You'll want to select your approver as well, whoever your eComm specialist is, and select confirm. That will get an email directly to their inbox.